being recorded, so you know. Yeah, we're good.
All right, I will call the October 10, 2022 meeting of the Board of Supervisors to order. I will announce that the Board of Supervisors did meet in executive session prior to this meeting at 6 p.m. Mr. Nease, can you please call the order? Or
Yes.
call, excuse me, call the roll. Thank you.
Mr. Altieri.
Here.
Ms. Roberts Lightcap is not here. Mr. Partridge.
Here.
Mr. Russo.
Here.
Ms. Chanlis.
Here.
Your engineer and manager here. I understand your solicitor will be a few minutes late.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nease. Cold and flu season seems to be upon us, so it's not anything I did, I swear. But I did have a cough last month. I don't know if that's what it was. We'll now move down into the moment of silence. One person I ask you to keep in your prayer tonight is the Conan family. Lindsay Conan was a member of the Newtown Square community for, I believe, 9 years. She was a member of the zoning hearing board. Her father, who was a 20+ year supervisor in Edgemont Township, passed away this weekend. Did 18 years as the vice chair of the board of supervisors in Edgemont. So I ask that we keep the Conan family in our prayers this evening. We now stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll move down to section 5, the agenda. I will make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Just second. So moved.
Motion was made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Russo. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed, motion carries unanimously. Section 6, public comment. If you have any public comment for an agenda item only, please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Louis Rosenthal, 20 Harrison. I have comments on some of the new business items and old business. Cover them now or wait until those?
Whatever you prefer. You wanna just
I'd
do
rather,
that?
if you'll allow, I'd rather do it when.
What
those
items are they, Louis?
It's likely budget.
So the budget presentation?
Correct.
Okay,
The second is the purchase of the leaf collection truck
okay,
and the commentary on the hanging baskets.
all right, perfect. Up to you. I mean,
I'd rather cover it then.
Cover it
It's
then,
just,
sir.
Contextual.
any other public comment? Seeing now, we'll move down to the minutes. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes from the September 26, 2022 meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Chanlis. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed, motion carries unanimously. Section 8, presentations. Mr. Lafiata, the floor is yours for a presentation on the combined funds.
So this presentation is going to be a lot of recap that we've talked about so far. We presented the capital, the personnel, the operating, and all other funds. This is taking everything and kind of just combining it into one. So starting off with our general fund revenues, our 2023 proposed budget has revenues increased of $155,000 over our 2022 budget. Some major components of that is $108,000 in our real estate taxes being increased due to additional assessment, $28,000 in other taxes associated with the, some transfer tax, as well as the growth of LST tax. You'll find about $16,000 in business license and permits. This is just to adjust for our year to date, make it more accurate with what we're projecting. Interest, if you remember at the last meeting, the supervisors gave us permission to invest some dollars. So hopefully that's going to have a positive impact on our revenues. You'll see an increase of $16,000 in our state shared revenue. This is an increase in our pension state aid. Another significant increase of 35,000 in other financing sources. This has to do with a contribution from the municipal authority that I believe is going to be discussed later in the meeting for some personnel related sharing costs, as well as an increase in the school district's contribution for the school resource officer, just due to the contract, the collective bargaining agreement. The last major variance you're going to see is $22,000 decrease in charges for service. This is directly related with our zoning and subdivision fees. So moving on to our expenses, in legislative, you're going to see a slight uptick of about $19,000 in legislative. Like I just said, that's for our grant writer. You'll see an increase of $110,000, almost $111,000 in finance. This actually has to do with two things. During the proposed personnel budget, we were proposing hiring a part-time bookkeeper, as well as an allocation beginning of 2022. We had an admin department employee allocated in admin. Since then, they were moved into the finance department, so obviously their expenses came with. You'll see a slight decrease of about $10,000 in legal fees, and this is just to adjust based on where we believe our projections are going to end up. You'll see a large increase of $117,000 in facilities. This is actually just an allocation. We don't allocate these back to the departments until the budget's actually passed, but this 117th actually gets absorbed into the other departments. The largest increase you're going to see is in the police department of about $413,000. This includes all the contractual increases, as well as one new hire, and then running 2 replacement hires for the first 6 months. You'll see a $40,000 increase in fire. The main 2 components of this is the $25,000 replacement program that we would like to begin, as well as some fuel increase costs. You'll see $49,000 in codes. This has to do with the hiring of a part-timer. And the last you will see on this page is about $100,000 for public works. This is adding $25,000 for the replacement program, salary adjustments, and overall just operating costs associated with inflation. Moving on to the expenses continued. You'll see a decrease of about $42,000 for street lighting. Traffic control devices. This has to do with the completion of our battery backups, as well as our sign replacement programs. Moving down to the street program, it's a $50,000 increase, bringing our overall road program to $400,000, like we've been doing over the past, I guess it's been 8 years. You'll see a $50,000 increase in the parks line item. This has to do with some ball field repairs to 2 of the ball fields, as well as a $25,000 playground equipment replacement program. And the last, I guess, 2 notable changes you'll see is a $23,000 increase in pensions. This is just our MMO. We got this from our actuarial. And last but not least, $15,000 for insurances. We haven't got our insurance renewals yet, but this is just a 5% increase on what we believe is going to shape out. So overall, our proposed 2023 budget is $960,000 above our 2022 budget. So moving on to this slide, our total revenues are 10.6, and our total expenses at the moment are 11.4, bringing an $804,000 deficit. We currently have $5.2 million in fund balance, projecting $10.8 million in revenues in 2022 with $11.3 million in expenses. Taking out our 25% fund balance leaves us a projection of $2.1 million to start 2023 in fund balance. If the board so chooses to fund the gap using fund balance, that would leave a projected fund balance of close to $1.4 million for the general fund at the end of 2023.
Hey, Rich.
Yep.
So you were just on slide 5 with the summary, right?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. So 2022 revenue projections 10,882,827.
Yep.
2022 expense projections. Actual expenses, 10,882, I'm sorry, 10,159,862, I believe. And then you have a transfer into capital. So I think just a note here that the actual revenue exceeded our expenses, our projection for 2022 by 722, almost $723,000. It's just that we made a transfer into the capital from the general fund. So therefore it appears in this presentation that the expenses exceed the revenue, when in actuality, that's really not the case. It might be a little bit semantics, but the actual expenses were not 11,346, 678, unless you want to say that transfer in the capital, considering that as an expense. So just maybe an idea about the way that this is displayed, because somebody look and say, wow, we had a tough year. The expenses exceeded the revenue. And it wasn't, it's actually the opposite. So anyway, just a point of clarification.
Yes, you are correct. There is a transfer to capital of, I believe it's $1.2 million included in the 2022 expense projections.
Yeah.
So moving on to streetlights, our street revenue is projected or proposed to be $2,700 over our 2022 budget. And again, that just has to do with the increase in assessment. Expenditures haven't really changed a lot. The major increase you're going to see in expenditures is the $20,000 interfund transfer. This is for the streetlight replacement program that we discussed at the last meeting. So overall, the expenses exceed the revenues by $24,000. If the board would choose to balance this using fund balance, the projected fund balance at the end of 2023 would be $77,000, approximately $600. Moving on to hydrants, again, our proposed revenue is about $3,200 over our 2022 budget. Again, this has to do with the increase in assessment. You're not going to really see many changes in the expenditures because these are just hydrant rentals from Aqua. So overall, at the end of 2022, we're projecting to increase our fund balance by $4,200, bringing the fund balance to $67,600. With the increase in fund balance at the end of 2023, we're about $72,000 in fund balance. ARPA funds, these are the funds that we received from the federal government for the American Relief Act. And as you can see on the expense side, we are proposing a little over $1 million in expenses. And this board earlier in the year chose to earmark that money for stormwater related items. So the end of 2025, all this ARPA money needs to be gone and reported. So at the end of 2023, we report a very small fund balance of about $2,600. Onto the note proceeds. The only thing you'll see here is interest. This is just some leftover dollars from the 2020 road program borrowing. As you can see, we're projecting about $30,000 spent in 2022 on some various road work. And then we're proposing spending the remaining $55,000 in 2023. And this fund will be closed at the end of 2023. Moving on to bond proceeds, this is roughly the same idea. This is just some leftover money that we had from the bond borrowing. We're proposing spending the remaining $65,000 of it on a new roof for the building, which is right in line with what the bond allows us to spend the money on. Again, this will be closed at the end of 2023. War on drugs. This is a small amount of interest as well as any drug forfeiture money that we receive. We're proposing additional $15,000 for a replacement vehicle in 2023. We discussed last time about how the insurance company we don't believe is going to reimburse us the full amount for a new vehicle. But that is something that we are looking into at the board's request. So if the board would so choose to balance the War on Drugs Fund with use of fund balance, we're projecting about $1,200 at the end of 2023. At least donations, these are just donations and interest, as there are only two revenues in this fund. And moving on to expenses, each year we purchase some bulletproof vests out of the police donations fund, and this is exactly what we're proposing in 2023. And if the board would so choose to balance with fund balance, we would end with about $33,300 left in fund balance at the end of 2023. Open space revenue, this is what the developers give us for open space contribution instead of land. In 2023, we're proposing spending $30,000 on a meadow preserve parking lot, some type of structure. And that would leave us with $61,100 at the end of 2023 if we used fund balance to balance that as well. Stormwater revenues, this is the revenues that we receive from homeowners doing stormwater projects. We're proposing about $50,000 for engineering and stormwater inspections, as well as the NPDES permits. Surprise myself sometimes. So with all that being said, we would end the year about $213,000. I would like to make note that after 10 years of these deposits, you actually start having revenues generate. So we do have more cash. If you're looking at our treasurer's report, they're just deferred revenues until you can claim the revenue after the 10th year. So I believe it's the end of next year. You should start seeing some fund balance grow in there from deferred revenues. Everybody's favorite, liquid fuels. George's favorite. We got the word from the state that our contribution is actually going to go up about $6,000 from this year to next year. And that money is currently being earmarked to pay down a loan. That's the only expense you're going to see on the liquid fuel side. So,
That loan is with regards to the road program, correct?
that is correct, yes. It's, and I believe it's done at the end of 2025. That will free up the liquid fuels money. So I believe last but not least, we have our capital funds. As you can see here, we have some interest greater than what we budgeted in 2022 because of the supervisor's direction to go invest. We also have some state and local grants, as well as some operating transfers. These are the three main revenue sources in the capital funds. And then moving on to expenses, you're looking at about $3.6 million, $3.7 million in expenses. But if you go to, I believe it is the last slide, second to last slide, sorry. We have our first time budgeted items, which are totally new items to the budget. They include things such as body cameras, some crosswalks, permanent speed tables, some rehabilitation, as well as the two replacement programs we'd like to try, the playgrounds and the fire replacement programs. And then we like to categorize things as replacement programs, things that we currently have that are just old or we need to upgrade. And those total about $3.3 million. So combined capital, we're looking at about $3.7 million in 2023. And we currently have a fund balance of $9 million with revenue projections of 1.9, which includes the transfer that Ed spoke about earlier. 2022 projections are about 650,000, taking out our $1 million fund balance policy and the current 2.9 million that we have assigned and committed. Leaves you with about $6.4 million in fund balance. And if the board would choose to balance the capital fund with the use of fund balance, that would leave you a projected $4.4 million at the end of 2023. And I know that was a lot, so if there's any questions.
Thank you, Rich. Is there any questions from the board?
No.
No? Mr. Rosenthal?
Just first, I would say thanks to Rich for a new guy in town. A lot of this nomenclature and things like that were confusing, and it's been very helpful.
It's usually the
And-
opposite.
Yeah. No. Anyhow, one comment for the board. There was a budget workshop process that took place. A number of things came up, and some of the departments in the township responded to those things. I would encourage, just from I guess a responsiveness to the community and to the people who were involved in that process, that this budget prior to adoption, the supervisors sort of go back to that document and say what they have actually supported through that process or what they decided not to fund. My only comment. Thanks.
That's actually a good point, because I know that, the grant writer, for instance, is something that's in there. And that was something that came out of that workshop. So that's actually a good point. So,
I just would make two quick comments. One is that a document will be shared with the board to look at some ways to narrow the gap that we're working on, because I know the gap's still pretty large. And my guess is we don't want to take all that out of fund balance for a variety of reasons. The second thing is just would make note to the board. This will be the last time Rich is here in the public meeting presenting. So next time you're stuck with me. So I hope you enjoyed Rich's presentation, because my guess is I'll be a little bit more wordy. So anyway, I'll turn it back over to you.
that was a quick notice that you gave us, Rich, but we have something, but no one's here, so we're going to hold off on that. As I said before, our losses, lower Plymouth, right? Lower Providence gain. So thank you for your almost 10 years of service to the township. Thank you for, not only those presentations, but what you do day in and day out with everything. And as Lewis said, I think that's just one small example of what you've done in terms of leaving your mark in this township over the last 10 years. Countless individuals who have called with questions, concerns, and have hung up the phone at ease, knowing that the information that you provided to them. So thank you for that. With that, we're now going to move into the reports. Mr. Nease.
Yes, wanted to bring your attention to a couple things. Further down in your agenda is the issue of purchasing the leaf collection truck. I just want to make a note just to you that we realize that there's actually an increase there, and it has to do mostly with the timing. This grant was put in 2 years ago, or two years ago, but it was supposed to be in 2020 that we were supposed to take action. And if we all can remember 2020, there were a few things that happened that everything got put on hold, including the state funding this money. So they funded it later. And so I just wanted you to be kind of aware of that, and I'll talk more to it as we get down there, but just in case anybody was questioning that. The other things that I have are related to the fact that I sent the board a picture. I didn't get a chance to put it on the agenda tonight. We have a picture of the tree that's going to go into St. Albans Circle. It's a very nice, full-looking evergreen. I believe it's a Norway spruce. And so I just wanted you to be aware that that tree is coming, and we will have it. We will have it. I do have a picture here that's kind of would be hard to see, but if you want to come up and see it afterwards, there is, you can see the picture of the tree that's being shipped to us. So that is good news. And I believe that's all I have for this evening.
And that's going to be in place for the tree lighting, right? We're going to have this in place for the tree lighting.
If everything goes right, it will be in place for the tree lighting, but probably will be put in early part of November with the idea that we'll have it in place and ready to go for the tree lighting.
I have to give credit where credit's due, not only to your team, but also to Supervisor Chanlis. This was one of her pet peeves before she got elected, and she made sure that we knew it was her pet peeve when she got elected. So Supervisor Chanlis, thank you for your consistency on that. It looks like we're finally gonna have a holiday tree again in Newtown Square.
I'm very excited about it. And thanks to Steve and our Public Works and George for putting that together as well.
Perfect. Anything else, Mr. Neese?
That's it.
All right, seeing none, we'll move down to item 10, budget adjustment. Can I get a motion to approve budget increase 2022-09, see item number 13.7 below?
So you can wait until you get to 13.7 below. It's actually part of the motion. It's really for our note when we
Okay.
go back and check.
We'll just move down to section 11, payments. 11.1, can I get a motion approving pay request number 2 and the final request to zone striping, Inc. totaling $3,938.91 for the Township line restoration projects. This reflects the completion of all work and punch list items, leaving a zero balance.
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Chandler, seconded by Supervisor Partridge. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. 11.2, can I get a motion approving the following court-ordered tax reduction funds? $682.66 payment to CLA Building Associates LP at 2 Campus Boulevard for the 2022 tax year. $3,927.59 payment to Sunoco Inc. at 0 Westchester Pike for the 2020 tax year. $15,321.14 payment to Sunoco Inc. at 3801 Westchester Pike for the 2020 tax year.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion is made by Supervisor Chandler, seconded by Supervisor Partridge. Is there any board discussion? I will just note, as we've been doing in the past, that these are court ordered as part of individuals who filed tax assessment appeals and then went up in the litigation of the Court of Common Pleas. So we're starting to see some resolutions of these as the dockets continue to move forward. With all that being said, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. 11.3, can I get a motion approving the following escrow releases for completed grading projects? $1,211.25 payment to James Costalis at 3207 Westchester Pike, $990.25 payment to Joseph Vernance at 303 Greenback Lane, $1,168 payment to Nick DeTrulio at 817 Ellis Avenue, $1,500 payment to Rosemary Vetta at 3673 Wyola Drive, $842.75 payment to Sandra Cannon at 201 Main Street.
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Chandler, seconded by Supervisor Partridge. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just thanks to whoever adjusted the menu and and put all these things together, the agenda on the agenda. Thanks for that instead of separate motions, whoever did that.
Steve is smiling from ear to ear, Ed.
Suzanne did the work.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed,
Aye.
motion carries unanimously. We'll get down to section 12 now, bills. I will make a motion to approve the bills on check register A dated October 10th, 2022, totaling $520,713.82.
Second.
Second.
Motion was made by the chair, seconded by Supervisor Partridge. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed, motion carries unanimously. 12.2, I will make a motion ratifying the bills on EFT register dated October 10th, 2022, totaling $1,278.10. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion was made by the chair, seconded by Supervisor Russo. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Section 13, new business. 13.1, consider approving during the absence of a finance director. Rich. the following duties to Suzanne Valanem.
If I can, I would change it to actually read Administrative Services Director. That way, in the future, it just covers it. It is Suzanne who's doing it, but this will actually be a change to your policy.
So, Mr. Sikora, would you recommend me making a motion to amend that since? Okay.
I think it's fine.
All right. So we're going to amend this. I'll make a motion to approve during the absence of a finance director, the following duties to the administrative
Services Director.
administrative services director. Is there a second for that
So
amendment?
moved. Second.
Okay, so motion was made by the chair, seconded by Supervisor Chanlis. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. Now we will vote on 13.1. Can I get a motion approving during the absence of a finance director, the following duties to the administrative services director, administrator of the P card, township credit card, administrative rights to the TD bank account for creation of necessary reports, administrative rights for the township PLIGT.
So, second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor Partridge. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. 13.2, consider accepting the following bids on municipal bid. $2,500 for the 2018 Ford Explorer from Andres Cesars, $2,900 for the 2015 Ford Police Interceptor from Carmen Yanuzzi.
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Chandler, seconded by, seconded by Supervisor Partridge. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those
Aye.
opposed, motion carries unanimously. 13.3, consider waiving all township-related fees for the old master pump station right-of-way conditional use hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor Partridge. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed,
Aye.
motion carries unanimously. 13.4, can I get a motion approving the request from Episcopal Academy to perform the annual rough cutting of the areas closest to the nature preserve to accommodate parking for their upcoming event? The grounds crew will oversee to reduce invasive growth as approved by the township.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Chandler, seconded by Supervisor Partridge. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. 13.5, consider approving the hiring of a part-time bookkeeper to assist in the finance department contingent on the approval of the municipal authority. The cost will be shared between the two entities.
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Chandler, seconded by Supervisor Partridge. Is there any board discussion?
If I can, just want to be real clear that in doing this, my goal would be for us to move forward this year to hiring that position that was actually intended to be in next year's budget. So it would be a position that we're kind of locking into, but I don't want any surprises when we get there. So everybody understands what we're doing.
Any comments or questions from the board? Louis, is this one of the items you have something on? You just have it on 13.7? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. 13.6, can I get a motion approving the settlement with image rights for use of an image on the township website and authorizing the township manager to sign the final agreement with the solicitor's review?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Chandler, seconded by Supervisor Russo. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. 13.7, can I get a motion approving the purchase of the 2023 leaf collection truck with swap loader and roll-off dumpster for a cost of $312,215 per the attached quote number 7895, as well as budget increase 2022-09 as noted below. This equipment was part of the DEP 902 grant submitted and awarded in 2020 and executed by the state in 2022. The DEP will reimburse $248,409 of that cost, with Newtown Township covering the remaining $53,806. Budget increase 2022-09, increasing the capital fund budget as follows: increasing the revenue account 30-300-00-279.00, use of fund balance by $27,008, increasing expense account 30-430-90-749.01, leaf machine / wood chipper by $27,800. The increase will come from the use of fund balance. The DEP 902 grant was submitted in 2020 and awarded but not executed by the state until 2022. The additional $27,008 is increased cost since the grant submission for the leaf trailer purchase already and leaf collection truck recommended for purchase at this time.
That amount was $27,008,
What did I say?
800, but so.
You're correct.
change 800 to 8, and I'll make that motion, Lynn.
Motion was made by Supervisor Partridge. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Seconded by Supervisor Russo. Is there any board discussion? You have anything you want to add to this, Stephen?
I don't think so at this time.
Mr. Rosenthal?
Related to my earlier comment with respect to the budget process and the residents that were involved, there was a recommendation that came forth in that process to increase the number of leaf collection days for each property. The original analysis that came back was that it was going to be expensive because of the purchase of a new vacuum truck and wood chipper and everything else. There is no mention on whether or not this is a piece of equipment that's new and in addition to what's there, or if this is replacing a truck and a vacuum that's going to get disposed of. My assumption is you now have 2 of these trucks, and it should be rather easy to at least have equipment to do additional days. You may not have the staff, but the supervisors are in control of that. That's it.
Perfect. Do either of you gentlemen want to take that?
You want me to take a go at it, George, or you want to, okay. And George, you can add in anything that I happen to miss. So this truck was, it was planned actually 2 years ago, prior to even the comments that were requested from the public. One of the things that we have oftentimes is there's a shortage of our rakers. The current setup requires rakers on each truck that we have a vacuum in the trailer. We have 4 trailers and 4 trucks that go out every day. This truck was really going to be designed to help in areas where it's tough to do that, particularly like cul-de-sacs. There's a very tight turn radius. This truck would be dispatched to those areas predominantly. It also, the other point of this truck is that invariably we get a call afterwards that somebody's leaves got out or was not picked up. This truck would be able to go back out and pick those up. That's the purpose. That was why it was picked. That's why we looked at this back at that point. It doesn't necessarily add enough resources for us to do a 3rd leaf pickup in a year. That would actually require 2 more leaf trailers. And that's not part of what this budget is.
Okay. Any other comments from the public or from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's only 1. I'll say
Aye.
aye. That's 2. There's 3. Motion carries. 13.8. Can I get a motion authorizing the expenditure of $6,900 for the purchase and installation of a 20-foot Norway spruce tree at St. Albans Circle, as well as the expenditure of up to $2,000 for materials for staff to build the electrical box and services at St. Albans Circle. These funds will be paid from the general fund budget account 01-454-70-385.00 community events.
So moved.
There's a second.
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Russo, seconded by Supervisor Partridge. Is there any board discussion? Thank you again to Public Works and to Supervisor Chanlis for this. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. 13.9, consider authorizing the township manager to facilitate cooperative purchasing and participation in phases 3 and 4 of the regional streetlight procurement program administered by the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission and approve the associated resolution 2022-30 DVRPC streetlight procurement program.
So moved.
Motion was made by, no, that's right. Thank you. Motion was made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Russo. Is there any board discussion?
You're going to go
Mr. Neese,
ahead.
do you want to add something? Okay.
Yeah, I just want to make sure you go ahead and read the resolution now, because we've actually moved it up to be covered at this time.
Do you have anything else you want to add with this before we get into the resolution?
This is an area that we've been targeting, I don't know, probably about 4 years, that we felt was underlighted. Is that a word? Underlit, maybe is a better way of saying it. And so it's an area where we were really focusing on the safety of pedestrians. And that's been the aim that we were looking for.
Any comments from the board? All right. Resolution number 2022-30, resolution of the 30, right? Yep. Resolution of the Board of Supervisors in Newtown Township, Delaware County, authorizing cooperative purchasing and participation in phases 3 and 4 of the regional streetlight procurement program administered by the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission. I am going to summarize after speaking with legal counsel. There's no need to go through all of that. So I will start as the first whereas clause, and then we're going to go to the second page. Whereas Newtown Township is located in Delaware County, Pennsylvania. We're going to flip to the second page there, Rose. Whereas Newtown Township wishes to exercise its option to proceed with phase 3 and 4 under its existing contract with the Keystone Lighting Solutions, KLS, and to secure its professional assistance in connection with the procurement and installation of streetlight improvements. And whereas DVRPC has entered into a contract with Amore and Sons Electrical, Inc., Amore, to provide construction installation services and assigned to Amore DVRPC's contracts for manufacture and distribution of equipment. And whereas Newtown Township has determined that its interests warrant piggybacking off of DVRPC's contract with Amore, thereby forming a separate and new contract between Newtown Township and Amore in the form attached hereto as Exhibit A. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Newtown Township hereby authorizes Newtown Township to exercise its options under the existing cooperative purchasing contract with KLS and to proceed to phase 3 and 4 of the program for the project management and post-construction operation and maintenance services. And it is further resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Newtown Township hereby authorizes Newtown Township to enter into cooperative purchasing in the form of a contract with Amore and Sons Electrical, Inc. for installation of equipment. And it is further resolved that the Board of Supervisors of Newtown Township hereby authorizes and directs its officials, employees, agents, and representatives to take all such further actions and to execute and deliver all such instruments and other documents as may be necessary or appropriate to enable Newtown Township to carry out the interests and purposes of foregoing resolutions in the transaction contemplated hereby. In resolution whereof the Board of Supervisors of Newtown Township has adopted and enacted this ordinance this 10th day of October, 2022.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. All right. What a day for everyone to be virtual. That could have been a real long one. We got 2 more after that too. All right, 13.10. Oh, we just did that one. You need me to make that motion? Do you need me to do that too?
I think that I don't know, do we need to take an action? We do?
Rich?
Rich, we
I
to
have
take
that.
the action
Len, I have,
on awarding it to them?
Yeah,
Okay,
just approve the contract.
Yeah, okay.
all right.
This is approving the contract.
Perfect. Can I get a motion approving the contract with Amore Electric for the installation of streetlights pursuant to the DVRPC's regional streetlight procurement program?
so moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying, oh, excuse me, is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. 13.11, can I get a motion authorizing the application of a for a 10,000 Pico Green Regions grant and associated resolution 2022-31, application to Pico's Green Region Open Space Program to assist with the cost of building accessible parking at the entrance to the Newtown Meadow Preserve.
Yeah, I have that if you want, Len. I
Go
can read
ahead,
that.
go take them, Supervisor Partridge. So let's have you take it.
Okay, resolution number 2022-31, Township of Newtown, Delaware County, Pennsylvania, resolution authorizing application to the Pico Green Region Open Space Program for the Meadow Preserve / Lister Trail accessible parking project. Whereas the Township of Newtown desires to undertake the Meadow Preserve accessible parking project, and whereas the Newtown Township desires to apply for the Pico Green Region Open Space Program for a grant for the purposes of carrying out this project, and whereas Newtown Township has received and understands the Pico Green Region Open Space Program guidelines. Therefore, be it resolved that Newtown Township Board of Supervisors hereby approves this project and authorizes application to the Pico Green Region Open Space Program in the amount of $10,000, and be it further resolved that if the application is granted, Newtown Township commits to the expenditure of matching funds in the amount of $10,000 necessary for the project's success. Resolved this 10th day of October 2022, and that's my motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Chanlis. Is there any board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. The resolution is signed. Okay. Now we're going to move down to old business 14.1, discussion and possible action relative to the hanging basket initiative. Mr. Nease.
You had in your packet a memo that was prepared for you related to this. And I think the memo kind of speaks for itself. Our concern with staff obviously would still continue to be able to do the driving of the truck, filling the water, doing all of those things, but it would, at this current level of staffing, I think we're in the belief that that we would need volunteers to be able to do the baskets going forward in 2023.
George, you have anything you want to add to this?
Forgive me for being out in the beginning when that started getting spoken about. So yeah, it's our recommendation. We're happy to continue for another year, driving and providing the equipment and the driver, et cetera, with it. We certainly help in the beginning of the season, picking them all up and putting them at the base and then collecting them and emptying them at the end. I recommend against the township taking on the full burden of doing all the watering ourselves. I think one, it's a resource question, but two, it's if it's a community-based project, then there should be community involved with it as well, hand in hand with it.
Okay. Is there any comments? I'll get to you. Is there any comments from the board before we turn it over? Because there's a few individuals from the public who have indicated they would like to say something. So is there any comments from the board? If not, what we'll do is we'll have the public say something, and then if there's any other follow-up comments from the board, we'll do that too. Mr. Rosenthal.
Mr. Rosenthal, 20 Harrison. I think the staff of the Public Works Department does a great job with this. This was my first year volunteering, watering the baskets. I would say, I asked Paul Seligson, who I guess puts this program together, why aren't there more? It's a sort of tiny bit of our township, maybe the busiest traffic part.
And when you say more, you mean the baskets?
More baskets.
Okay.
I think there was something like 84 baskets this year. I heard in the past there were over 100. And likely next year there'll be less than that because of Westchester Pike being widened. So
Correct.
We'll wind up losing baskets. I have no problem with it being a volunteer supported program. But I'm going to put this back to the supervisors. It's a quality of life issue, and if you think they look good, then maybe the supervisors should allocate enough funds so that it becomes a regular program, just like mowing the grass in public spaces that belong to the township. It makes our town look really good. And when you drive into town and you see signs that say Tree City USA and we're a bird town and all of these other things, those are really great. But you know, this is an opportunity, I think, for the supervisors to think about supporting it. And I can't see this being a dramatically large budget increase, but it may be money well spent on how we feel about the way our town looks. So I would thank George and his staff and the volunteers other than myself who get up 4 o'clock in the morning to do this.
Thank you. Ms. Rukowski. I think just go all the way up to, just do that from the podium so she can get you.
224 French Road, Newtown Square. I just want to say that I expect a community-based program to be supported by the city, the township. I mean, I find it, this gentleman was very kind. I'm not that quite as kind of mood tonight, but I find it incomprehensible that we cannot water these plants. We live in one of the ugliest pieces of Westchester. The intersection of Route 3 and 252 is one of the ugliest. It's worse than most of any intersection on Route 30. And we can't even support putting these plants up and getting them watered. I just find it unbelievable that this is what our township has turned into. I've lived here almost 30 years, and our township is just pretty much ugly right now. And I think we can do so much more to make it better. And this is just one small thing that is an insult to Newtown Square and Bloom and every person in this township. You should all be ashamed of yourselves for not being able to get those plants watered. It's ridiculous.
Can I just ask real quick, when have you been able, I mean, I think you have a lot of energy, you have a lot of passion for that. Have you taken any of that to try to get volunteers to assist? I mean, that's what the issue
No,
is.
I am, because I don't think I should have to.
Even though it started
I
as
work really hard to get volunteers to do millions of things.
yeah,
Probably ones you don't really particularly care for too much.
I care for
But
everyone in
I'm
this
just telling
township.
you right
I
now,
know what
I
that,
don't
I
feel
know what that
any
meant, but
I understand why you're asking me that, but I have no intention of ever doing that because I think it's ridiculous to ask me to.
well, it started out as a community-based thing. So I'm just curious.
And the township always supported it up until the last 2 years by watering the plants.
It's actually not, that was not,
That's not
that's not
true.
accurate.
That is not true.
Okay.
You do not have the facts right. In the beginning, it was completely taken care of by others. The township picked it up when some of the corporate sponsors stopped taking care of it, and the township stepped up and started to help with the watering. At the time, we said, we do not have the staff to continue to provide at that level. It sounds like it's not a big deal. It's an hour and a half or 2 hours for the additional person. But when you do that 2 or 3, or at that point, I believe it was actually more days a week because of the way the baskets were, that was where the problem came. The township is still, as a staff, we still say we should provide the truck, we'll provide the driver, we'll take care of the water. What we're looking for was some volunteers. That was the staff's position. If not, if the board wants to do something different, we will make a recommendation to hire a part-timer to come in and do that. That would be the other option.
Okay, so then you didn't do it all the time, but you did do it for a while and then you took it away. And I still don't.
That's
get
not
it.
what he just said.
We are
I
still,
understand exactly what he said, but it was a priority. The supervisors decided not to support.
That's
we have
not
done-
true.
We've been
I don't-
providing the same
I
service
think,
once we picked it up.
Okay, so if you were doing it and now you're not doing it, I don't understand.
No, we are, what we're saying is, and I'll just say this and then I'll stop.
Yeah, it's fine.
What we are saying, just to be very clear, the township would continue to provide the same services it has been providing. What we're not recommending is the township take and doing the volunteer person's role of doing the watering. That's the only
Well,
thing
I
that we
guess
said.
I disagree with you that that's a volunteer's role. I
Okay,
think the township
that's fine.
should support it.
But it's, yeah, understood. It started out as a volunteer position. We hope that it continues to stay as a volunteer position. I will say I do like all of your volunteers, despite what you might think. But thank you for your comments. I don't think that there's a need for us. There's no vote on this right now. I think this was more just informational. I think it was extremely helpful to get the facts out there that this was completely volunteer-based with corporate sponsors. For whatever reason, those corporate sponsors pulled out. We stood in for those corporate sponsors. I think that's the important thing. We retrofitted a street sweeper truck. We created a water jug to it to step in when the private industry stepped out. We provided that service. We have continued to provide that service with volunteers. This is a community-based organization. And we will continue to provide the same level of services as long as we have volunteers in there. Lewis did what, 18 of the 24 routes this summer? I did one, Tina did one. I mean, we talk about beautifying the township and wanting to make this a community. Well, we need the community to step up and help. And I think it's important that facts are out there, and I'm happy those facts are out there now. Now we move to 14.
Hey, Len.
Yes,
Len,
Ed.
and one last comment, that the board and the administration has continually supported all suggestions and efforts to beautify the township. I mean, that's our goal, and that's what we support. So anything to the contrary is not true. Thank you, Len.
Thank you, Supervisor Partridge. Does anyone else have anything they want to add? Seeing none, we'll move to 14.2. Consider approving the request from BPG to temporarily use a portion of the reserve excess sewer capacity allocated to the township totaling 15,525 gallons a day to accommodate the new office building and event center. BPG will be responsible for getting the DEP to reallocate capacity from unused capacity from older completed developments to restore the township's reserves, contingent on the approval of the township manager and solicitor. I do see that Mr. Ford is here, as well as his attorney, Mr. Edelman. I will also state, as I did at the last meeting, that I have transferred to a new firm. My firm is, the wheels of justice grind slowly, and so do conflict checks. So we are in the process of going through the conflict checks. Since my firm had previously represented, not related to this project, but BPG as an entity in an unrelated matter, until those conflict checks are resolved, I will be recusing myself from this discussion, as well as from this vote. Since I'm also the only one here, though, it's going to be a little hard to recuse from the full discussion to move this along.
That's
But
fine.
the floor is yours, Mr. Ford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First off, I'd like to, actually, I didn't know Rich was leaving till tonight. And I'd just like to thank him for his 10 years of service to the township, and especially making himself available to us on a weekly basis, going through the numerous bills that run through Ellis Preserve, and Rich has always been accommodating, and he's going to be greatly missed. So thank you very much. If ahead of the sewer discussion, Chairman, I'd like to just give a quick update on a couple things at Ellis regarding phase 2, if that's okay, a little bit out of order.
I think that's fine.
Okay. What I'd like to do is just give a quick update. And it was just, I know this has been a concern of the board. So, say over the past 6 weeks, we've been working with John Hosbach, your what is it? Barbers, on the landscape plan for phase 2. We just wanted to make sure that everybody was in sync with what we were planning out there. So I'm going to start with the first diagram up on the screen. As of today, we started all the perimeter landscaping, except a couple spots, which I'll show you.
John, could you speak a little bit louder?
Sure. Can you hear me, Ed?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So as of today, we started the perimeter landscaping at phase 2 of Ellis. As you see on the diagram up on the screen, everything in green is the installation started today.
John, real quick, orient people who are watching this,
Oh, sure.
where this is.
Sure. So the bottom of the screen is Westchester Pike. To the right hand of the plan is Winding Way. And then on the left side of the plan is Charles Ellis Boulevard. So everything outlined in green, installation began today of all the perimeter landscaping along Westchester Pike up to the first curb cut on Charles Ellis and up to the first curb cut on Winding Way.
I'm sorry. Let
Yeah,
me
sure.
ask you, since we're not voting, I can't answer about this one. This is, because I'm colorblind here, these are all the same color, right? Everything on here is green, is what you're showing?
Everything green is getting
shaded?
installed right now.
Okay,
There's still a lot other landscaping that needs to go inside the site, but we've gotten the perimeter of the site to a point where we're able to get most of the landscaping installed. So this is the area on the southern part of phase 2 and the east and west phases of phase 2. If I could switch, go to the next plan. And there's so this is the interior portion of the site, just west inside the site of the apartment building that's going up along 252. So we're installing all of the landscaping along the main boulevards within the site, everything in front of the apartment buildings and everything to the north of the townhouse pad sites, in between the townhouse pad sites and the phase 1 of the apartment project. And if I could get to the next. And so what you see here is on the right-hand side of the plan is 252. And everything in green, again, is being installed starting this week. And it's approximately take about 2.5 weeks to get everything installed. So all of this landscaping will be in over the next 2 weeks. And the trail connection you see along 252, that is also going in right now. So the trail will be connected fully from on the lower part of the plan. Actually, if you keep scrolling down. So basically all the way from Winding Way, all the way up to Goshen Road will be a continuous trail installed. Also, a little bit later this month, we're going to start all the paving within the site. So all the roads will be paved, all the parking lots in phase 2 will be paved. So basically, the only thing that will be left will be the pad sites to go vertical at that point.
does the board have this by email?
It's in the, yeah, we have those drawings.
Okay.
I think we got it this afternoon and
All
it
right.
was mailed out to you.
Do any, for this part of, are you done with this, John? Done with this
Yeah,
part?
sure.
With regards to this part, do any board members have any questions or comments?
Good news.
John, let me ask you this question.
Sure.
What is, because I see it here, but I want to make sure, in case anyone who doesn't have it, what are the numbers? What are you looking at? How many are you planning?
Hundreds. Could be up around 1,000.
Oh, there's not a total, it's all individuals?
Yeah, it's really hard to break down, but it's, the PRD works under a different set of guidelines than your ordinance. There's the requirements are much more than what you would have to do for a normal development. And they were, that was negotiated a long time ago.
Mhm.
But yeah, there's quite a bit of landscaping going in.
Perfect.
And then along with this, we have the trail easement along 250, or actually along Goshen Road. That easement's actually set to expire. So I've been talking to your solicitor about that, and we're going to get that re-upped for X amount of years. So all the trails contiguous to the property will be installed. I'd ask Greg Edelman to come with me tonight for the sewer discussion, Greg was involved in the 7-party agreement back, I don't know how many years ago. And so Greg's just going to try to summarize our request in line with the Dave Porter's presentation.
So you bring Greg when I can't argue with him tonight? Is that what it is?
Oh.
So I can't argue with you now. I don't know.
You can argue with me.
No fun.
I'm not going to stop you. Good evening, Greg Edelman here on behalf of Equus and BPG. It's nice to be here. I did see Dave's presentation, which I think he made at the last meeting to the board regarding the residual capacity. I want to clarify a couple things. I think when we started this exercise, BPG Equus was looking for about 15,000 gallons of excess capacity that they could use and basically borrow and then give back. Those numbers have been further refined, and in Dave's presentation, he actually touches on it. What's really needed now, according to the analysis, and this was refined because DEP allowed a reduction in the catering allocation, is 10,125 gallons per day. And of that 10,125 gallons per day, there's actually still capacity available that was under the 185,000 that Equus BPG has. So really, in essence, we're looking at about 8,300 gallons per day or so to be borrowed, not 15,575. And I bring that up because it's, I think, significant. When you look at Dave's presentation again, if you start where the 537 plan update was originally approved, the township had about 21,000 gallons per day or so allocated to it as infill. After you started to see the flows come in, and Dave in his presentation talks about the Chapter 94 wastewater management flows, which are the actual flows, the township's infill amount increases to 33,000. So right there, there's a change between the original planning flow and the actual infill flow that the township has available. We're seeking now to borrow that delta. Okay, we're not looking to have the wholesale changes of the rest of the 537 planning. We're not looking at any of that just for this borrowing portion. The rest of it, meaning the reallocation that Dave talked about, the reallocation under the 7-party agreement, the residual flows from some of the other users that have not used as much as they've needed. All of that comes as part of the sewage facilities planning module for the remaining buildings in phase 2. I think we've called that phase 2E, if I remember, E and F. I mean, we've changed the letters, so I'm not exactly sure. And what happens in that process is that's where that 8,000 and change that's being borrowed comes back to the township as those residual flows are freed up, reallocated or unallocated, however you want to say it, by DEP. We're not concerned from our end that that's not going to happen. The 7-party agreement had 250,000 gallons allocated to it that DEP has approved. And in fact, if you go back in time, they actually approved phase 4 at Springton Point Woods twice, which was another 25,000 gallons. So there's a ton of capacity that's available under that 7-party agreement that DEP will have to give back to the township, because the township was given the 250 plus the initial amount that they got, the secondary amount they got under the 7-party agreement with CDCA to bring your total up to like 960 some thousand gallons. So in the residual area, there's plenty. In the infill area, the township's already increased its amount above and beyond what it originally contemplated it had. So all we're looking the board to agree to is conceptually that BPG Equus would be able to borrow that 8,000 gallons now while they go through the planning module process for the rest of the development. Once that gets approved by DEP, that number basically goes right back into the township's infill, plus whatever other residual that gets freed up. In the unlikely event, okay, that doesn't happen and the gallons don't come back, then what Equus and BPG conceptually have said to the township is, we will pay for the township to go get an additional 8,000 gallons from CDCA. I don't think that's going to happen. You remember you have 175,000 gallons per day that hasn't even been used for National Realty. You have Melmark, you have Stony Knoll, you have a whole bunch of other projects that have been allocated X and are using Y, and there's all this excess capacity. So we originally started at 15. We were looking at 15 of 21 to borrow. We're now at 8, looking at 8 of 33 to borrow for a temporary time period. So from my point of view, and I'm not just speaking on behalf of my client, I'm looking at this as a whole. I see little risk. And even if there is risk, what my client's willing to do is pay to go get the additional capacity from CDCA. And we all know that CDCA has the additional capacity available in the system. So I wanted to kind of simplify what Dave had put out in 39 slides to that. All of his information is relevant, but I think it kind of, it muddles it. We're looking at 8,300 gallons per day to be borrowed that comes back with the planning module. If our planning module doesn't get approved with that borrowing coming back and the residual coming back, then we've got to go buy the extra from CDCI. So that's really why I'm here this evening, to try to get the board to see what it is that's really going on here. It's not really major. It's really a timing mechanism. And we're asking the township for their cooperation to be able to move forward additional portions of this development now via an exemption so that we can then clean everything up as part of the overall planning module, which I think is waiting to be signed and then processed. So it's already here. It's already been reviewed. It's been worked on by the authority. This is like the first step, then the next step.
So Greg,
Yeah.
question. So in 14.2, it mentions the 15,525. Should we replace that with 8,300? Is that basically?
Yeah, Ed, let me give you the exact number. It's 10,125 minus 1,775. It's 8,350 gallons per day.
Okay. And then I have another question, but it's actually for Rich. Rich, did you already start to prepare something that we could take action on to for BPG to borrow the 8,350 with all the contingencies in it, where if there was a problem with DEP, where BPG would pay for the additional 8,350 that the township would go after? I mean, did you already put all this together?
Generally, we've been going back and forth, covering those types of concepts. That idea of the reimbursement came out of those discussions. There is a document, but it's not finalized. So if you were to approve this tonight, you would just say, this is approved subject to finalization by me, the solicitor, and the township manager.
Okay. Thanks, Rich. And I guess, Len, just from my side, if when we're ready, I would have a proposed motion to make. So.
Got it. Is there any other board members that have anything they want to add or any discussion from the board?
No, I'm good.
Supervisor Chanlis?
No, I mean, I think I appreciate that summary that was just given. I mean, that's my understanding is that, this will be subject to the provisions, that we've talked about that'll protect the township, in the event that the planning module isn't approved. And I guess also my understanding is that we're not really, the DEP process still is going to go forward with their review and approval. So we're not, we're just certifying that these 8,300 are available, right? So the standard, we're not shortcutting any kind of DEP process. That process is still going to play out.
That's correct.
So assuming that that's right, yeah,
I thought I picked it up.
that's my understanding.
That is correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other board members? All right. Supervisor Partridge, I'm going to turn it over to you since I am out on
Right.
this one.
All right, thanks. Okay, I'd like to make a motion to approve the request from BPG to temporarily use a portion of the reserved excess sewer capacity allocated to the township, totaling 8,350 gallons per day to accommodate the new office building and event center. BPG will be responsible for getting the DEP to reallocate capacity from the unused capacity from older completed developments to restore the township's reserve, contingent on the approval of the township manager and solicitor. The solicitor would include all provisions and contingencies to reimburse the township for BPG to reimburse to pay for the reimbursement of the capacity if additional capacity needs to be procured.
Is there a second? Is there a second?
I'm seconding it.
Motion was made by Supervisor Partridge, seconded by Supervisor Russo. Is there any other board discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Supervisor Chanlis?
Oh, I said aye.
The motion carries 3-0 with one abstention.
Thank you very much for your time this evening. Leonard, it was good to see you.
I look forward to the next one, Greg. Hopefully I can participate a little bit more. All right, we did 15.1, we did 15.2. Now we'll get down to section 16 ordinances. Can I get a motion approving ordinance 2022-02 Springton Point and Sleepy Hollow stop signs?
So move for approval.
So moved.
All right,
Second.
and I will read it. It's ordinance number 2022-02, an ordinance to amend the code of the Township of Newtown, Chapter 165, vehicles and traffic to add stop signs on Springton Point Drive in the north and southbound directions at both ends of Sleepy Hollow Drive, and organize Springton Point stop signs into a new Springton Point section. The Board of Supervisors of Newtown Township hereby ordains Section 1, the Code of the Township of Newtown, Chapter 165-1, stop signs designated is hereby amended as follows. New section is hereby added entitled 165-1.0 Springton Point Drive, Sleepy Hollow Lane. The following sections from 165-1D Larchmont Square Dogwood are hereby moved and designated. The new section 165-1.0 as follows. 16.1, 165-1.D9 north on Springton Point Drive at Gradyville Road is now 165-1.01, 165-1.D10 west on Sleepy Hollow Lane at Springton Point Drive is now 165-1.02, 165-1.D11 Sleepy Hollow Drive at Springton Point Drive, both ends is now 165-1.03. The following sections from 165-1D are renumbered 165-1.D12 north and south on Berman Street at 3rd Avenue is renumbered to 165-1.D9. 165-1.D13 north on Morton Street at 1st Avenue is renumbered as 165-1.D10. The new section 165-1.0 is hereby amended by adding the following sections: south on Springton Point Drive at Sleepy Hollow Lane in the northern end of Sleepy Hollow Drive, section 5, north on Springton Point Drive at Sleepy Hollow Lane and northern end of Sleepy Hollow Drive, 6 south on Spring Point Drive at the southern end of Sleepy Hollow Drive, 7 north on Spring Point Drive at the southern end of Sleepy Hollow Drive. Section 2, this ordinance shall take effect and be enforced from and after its approval in accordance with Pennsylvania law, approved by the board this 10th day of October 2022.
So
All those in
moved.
favor signify by
Yeah.
saying aye.
Okay.
Oh, well, you already
Aye.
made the
Aye.
motion.
Yeah. Okay. Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries unanimously. We will now move down to board comment. I'll keep it brief. The only thing I have is Saturday was the dedication of the fire company, the firehouse, and the housing of the new ladder truck. Steve Nease, Tina Roberts, Lightcap, and I attended. They gave us this plaque. It was actually a really cool experience. The signification of the housing of a truck by taking it out and pushing it in 3 times, because the horses used to carry the trucks, and then the volunteers would push the trucks back. They do it to signify God, country, and community. I think it is, for the 3. I'm looking at Lewis as the next fireman in the room here. So it was a really beautiful event. They had from the mutual aid companies, surrounding fire departments. It was a really nice job. It was really well done. And then also on Saturday night, Tina and I went and represented the board at Bandorama. We did sponsor that, and we were able to give some of the awards out along with Tony Maloof, who's on the school board. So it was a great event. It was a good time. That's all I have for board comment. Does anyone else have anything for board comment? Seeing none, we'll move down to public comment. This is reserved for anyone who has anything to say with regards to an agenda item or anything else that might just be on their mind. No one? There's only 2 in here. We'll now move to the items for the next agenda. I have nothing. I will make a motion to adjourn this meeting. Thank you all very much.
Thanks.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.